Not long after, Michael made a suggestion that helped as much as the one to read Kushner. If I didn't have a concept of God that worked for me, I should make up one of my own. Someone so averse to pretense should have kicked that one out cleanly, but all this focus had softened me up, and without too much effort, I conceived a higher power that combined my uncles Albert and Joe, one from each side of the family. I chose them because neither one had ever said a cross word to me. Both had always had time for me, and I knew intuitively that both of them liked and loved me whether they said it or not. They made me feel special. I was sure that in any circumstance, they would have wanted the best for me, and would have helped me to get there if I had asked, and wouldn't have scolded me if I had fallen short. God should be so good. Though I didn't see them at the time, there were a couple other commonalities as well. Neither ever married, a path I thought I was on, and they both lived in the shadows of more accomplished brothers. My dad's father, Joseph, ran leather businesses on the North Shore, and he had employed Albert, just as Solly, my mother's father, had employed Joe. I began to picture one or both of them on my shoulder when I craved help or comfort that I wasn't finding in everyday life. If I conjured up only one of them, it was usually Joe, who was more involved in my life at an earlier age. He used to take me with him when he'd go to fix a broken window or install a shower enclosure, and he was there the day I learned to ride a bicycle. This was just a construct, of course. I'd made it up, and yet I stuck with it, so it must have been doing something for me. Then came the day that I was sure of it. I'd been smoking cigars, one of the more severe detours my compulsion had taken since I'd put down the food. Practically overnight, I'd changed from the cigar smoker who didn't finish a 5-pack to one who went through 50 cigars in a week. Yes, that's 7 stinky stogies a day. I was smoking before hitting the floor in the morning, and I'd often let one extinguish on the nightstand as I retired. I reordered my workday so that I could hang out outside a couple times a day. I allowed this obviously unhealthy behavior on the grounds that I wasn't inhaling, which A, was never completely true, B, didn't prevent nicotine dependence regardless, and C, skipped over the fact that it was addictive behavior, a major flaw all by itself. Just as has happened with food, I did come to see eventually that I was out of control and would have to stop, but had been unwilling or unable to. That's powerlessness, wanting to do something, but being unwilling or unable to. Then one day I pulled into the CVS parking lot to get my next box, leaving a stub smoldering in the ashtray. I went in, got my stash, and stood in line. But it was long, and I was impatient, so I decided to look around until the line subsided. As I was browsing, an alchemy within me combined the knowledge that smoking was bad for me with the certainty that Uncle Joe wouldn't want me to do it. Just like that, I put down the box and walked out a free man. It was just like that night on the turnpike. I'd walked in with one intention and left with another. Certainly not because I had willed it, but perhaps because I hadn't. In my little world of rules, I would have been entitled to finish off the stogie in the ashtray, but I let it go. And miraculously, that was the end of them. It's true that I've backslidden briefly over the years, so nothing's permanent, but I'll never forget how Uncle Joe helped me quit. It was an impressive feat for a dead man, particularly one who would smoke cigars every day that I knew him.